Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Debatable Discussions podcast. You join us for another exciting episode today as we're going to delve into this Iran conflict. It's really intensified over the last few days, Diane. We've seen Donald Trump threat to almost obliterate a whole civilization on Tuesday before a ceasefire. So could you provide our listeners with a brief overview of the developments in this conflict between the US, Israel and Iran?
Yes, so after the initial round of strikes, as we all know, and the death of the Ayatollah and the election of the new Ayatollah, there have been a series of sort of bombings led by the US and Israel on Iran, and now today on Lebanon. But the main bit is regarding Iran, and in retaliation for that, Iran has basically blocked the Strait of Hormuz, blocking around 20% of the world's oil supply. So, with a couple of the Gulf states actually not being able to transport any oil at all due to the developments, thousands of ships are blocked and sort of in danger of just getting annihilated, basically. I just read today that European airports, they're saying they could run out of fuel in about 2.5 weeks. I'm sure everyone else is in the same situation. We've seen sanctions on Russia get lifted, actually, in quite a sneaky move by Trump to allow Putin to now pump oil back into the world. Obviously, a measure that was sort of a direct link of the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is blocked. So Iran's played this very cleverly, I think. Do I condone it? Absolutely not. But I think it's a clever move because they had no cards. There was nothing they could do apart from endure the bombings and block the strait. Because blocking the strait has put so much pressure on Trump, both domestically and externally, with sort of people being both inside and outside the country just losing it and saying, you're killing the world economy. What is this? Europe took a step back, didn't want to get involved. Apart from Romania, who, I'm not going to get into that because that's an hour's monologue. But most European countries have not allowed US troops in their bases and stuff like that. So the developments are this. Ceasefire was achieved a couple days ago.
Yes, on Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, after Trump said, I'm going to destroy a whole civilization or something along the lines of. And actually, there's been quite a fantastic backlash. So you've seen both people inside and outside the MAGA sphere sort of criticize Trump. Obviously, people outside were going to do it anyway. So you've seen the likes of Gavin Newsom and some other leading Democrats, but you've also seen people in Europe. So some of the European leaders have actually sort of made sure to emphasize how big of a failure this operation actually was. But also people inside the Trump sphere, such as Alex Jones, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Theo Von, Joe Rogan, all of them sort of criticized Trump and the way he handled the conflict and the way he got involved in the conflict. So, yeah, what do you think about that, John? I mean, a lot of the people actually sort of got Trump elected and now sort of turning their backs on him.
Yeah, and I think it's all to do with the effects of the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, the Strait of Hormuz is something which, myself included, I couldn't have really pointed to on a map before the 28th of February when these UN strikes on Iran and Israeli strikes on Iran started. But it's almost suffocated the global economy, literally. We've seen the price of oil rise now almost well above $100 per barrel. Similarly, the stock market has had to be even rescued in countries in Asia.
Yeah.
It has really dropped across the world. You mentioned there as well, Dan, the Strait of Hormuz's current situation. So it's sort of very cloudy. But under the 2-week ceasefire that was agreed on Tuesday, ships are supposed to have safe passage. However, they were told a day later that they'd be targeted and destroyed if they entered the strait, saying that 19 ships as of today, the 10th of April, were tracked of going through the Strait of Hormuz. However, that's a huge decrease, a huge decline from the 138 ships, which is the daily average through the strait. So that considerable decrease there in shipping activity across the strait shows the huge effect it's had on suffocating the global economy. because, I mean, notably oil, but even things such as sort of more consumer or industrial goods haven't had the opportunity at all to enter.
Yeah.
Another interesting idea, Diane, which we should expand on is, and to mention that as well, that's obviously led to so many economic effects in the US, rising prices of oil. Trump's got the midterms to be concerned about. And so it's always going to grow criticism. That's partly because many are wondering whether this war was entirely necessary. Um, you know, the Gulf states will be extremely annoyed at Trump because Trump basically started these unprecedented attacks, which have led to huge attacks upon their infrastructure, military bases for countries like the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, or Qatar. I think it calls something quite interesting into question, and that's what is Netanyahu doing. Netanyahu clearly doesn't care about what Trump wants. He's mainly occupied in this war in Lebanon, which he said wasn't included in Tuesday's 2-week ceasefire. Therefore, since the ceasefire, more than 300 people have been killed in Lebanon by Israeli attacks. That includes, I think, 100 strikes in 10 minutes on Wednesday. So Netanyahu is really almost doing his entirely own thing compared to Trump. I mean, he's sort of totally awful. He's taken no notice of the ceasefire. And I think it's 120 pieces of terror infrastructure, in his words, which is targeted in South Lebanon since Tuesday. What do you think of this, Dan? What do you think about Netanyahu, but also the effects on the Gulf region overall? Will we see them grow away from America in the future?
I think we've seen ceasefire. It's actually a tweet from the Pakistani Prime Minister, actually, so the chief negotiator and broker of this deal. And he specifically says that there is a ceasefire, including Lebanon.
Yeah.
And, tags sort of JD Vance, the Ayatollah, Trump, and everyone involved.
Yeah.
So I think this is actually such a bad faith move from America. They're dealing in bad faith, and it's going to come back to bite them. Because if they're dealing in bad faith, so will Iran. And, whatever we may think, Iran at the moment has the upper hand.
Yeah.
Trump has been able to achieve absolutely nothing with this war. Nothing. Hasn't been able to achieve regime change.
Yeah.
Has only managed to damage his popularity. This is another Vietnam in the eyes of many citizens. An unnecessary war on a side of the world that they don't really care about, and they feel like it's not their business.
Yeah.
The midterms are coming soon, and he's going to feel it. I'm sure that he will lose the midterms. There is no chance that the Republicans keep the House and the Senate. And I think when that happens, we're going to have an actually very difficult time in the sense that he might get impeached. I mean, who knows? I think if the Democrats win, they will kick him out in a week if this war isn't finished. If he doesn't manage to wrap it up until the midterms, number one, the global economy would have gone crazy because Strait would have been closed and oil would have just exploded.
Yeah.
Manufacturing would just close down in virtually most places. There'd be an economic crisis. If Trump is still in power and hasn't managed to wrap it up until the midterms, the Democrats will kick him out in 2 days.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to impeach a president. I'd guess he isn't impeached, because I suppose that's far more difficult. But I think I think the MAGA base is divided, but then Trump's got a cult of personality in a way. And I think it'll be hard to break through that. I mean, I don't think by any means the Republicans will do well at the midterms. I definitely think they'll suffer. But then I don't know if the level of suffering will be as large as people think. I think what determines in reality is if Trump can achieve a ceasefire in coming days. Because that would effectively, as I said there, that would put a stop to these economic problems like the rising price of oil and petrol. And then as soon as they can as Trump can, let's say, mitigate that economic side, he can effectively control a lot of the damage in the midterms. So I think I sort of agree with you, Dan. It's reliant on this ceasefire, which Pakistan will broker in the coming days. I think they've reported JD Vance has gone to Pakistan, and I think the Iranian delegation has as well.
I think this is the worst time for Trump. I mean, it's so nonsensical to me. Why would you go to war in Iran when there is a huge, huge anti-Israel sentiment growing,
Yeah.
and that sentiment isn't anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
It's the result of sort of actions that Israel has taken in Gaza, which
Yeah.
are, to some extent, war crimes.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those things are inhumane.
Yeah.
There is a massive anti-Israel movement growing. There is a massive anti-war movement happening at the moment.
Yeah.
And also, America doesn't like being at wars that don't affect them. It's, that's what
Yeah.
history tells us. Vietnam was a massive failure. And
Yeah.
this risks to be another Vietnam. Because just like how they lost in Vietnam, it's not looking like they're going to win here.
Yeah.
And again, he hasn't been able to achieve anything. I don't think he will be able to achieve anything. If he doesn't wrap it up soon, and by soon, I mean in the next week,
Yeah.
if we reach that 2.5 week mark where airlines ran out of
Yeah.
fuel, then it's looking very, very bad. And I think, look, I don't think we've ever had this situation in the States. I don't think we've ever had the president go in the middle of the night, kidnap a foreign leader,
Yeah.
and just get away with it, unscathed,
Yeah.
nothing. And then a sort of 2 weeks later, metaphorically, decides to just start bombing another country and
Yeah.
gets away with it. I think if the Democrats get House, they will eat him alive.
Yeah.
They will eat him alive because the MAGA base is divided, and a lot of people voted him in as the peace anti-war option
Yeah.
because we've
That's
had
the
this
premise.
massive propaganda from all the people I've mentioned before. Tucker Carlson saying, "Oh, if you vote for Kamala, you're going to war. She's going to send you to war, and you're going to die." And that's not happened. And I don't think it would have happened, but it's happening now because Trump is actually debating whether to send military troops in the strait or not.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think Americans, like many people in their politics, do become concerned when it gets to really an economic issue. And it's starting to approach that, even though the US has got such huge oil reserves. There are clear economic effects of the war, which are starting in the States. And I think Iran will know that coming into these talks with JD Vance. They will know that it's in the US's best interest to get a deal done. And I mean, it's always hard to predict these things, but I think the US will try quite hard, especially JD Vance, because he'll know the effects of the midterms.
I think also another
And
thing to
he
mention.
can try and fashion it as a victory. It wouldn't be a victory for the US at all, but they'll try and get it, in my eyes, it's in their best interest to get it done before the midterms. And Trump can attach a slogan, saying he did something in the Middle East.
If they don't get it done before the midterms, the world's ended.
Yeah.
If they don't get it done in 2 weeks, we're in big trouble. 2 weeks, I think, is the massive deadline because if airlines ran out of fuel, that is a very tangible thing. That, a person feels like, oh, I was supposed to go to, especially with the States being such a big country.
Yeah.
You need to fly. And I think people will feel that. I think also Iran has an advantage in this situation, which is that they don't need votes. And they don't care about votes. And they don't really care about how their population feels, because they're in a position where that doesn't impact whether they're in power or not.
Yeah.
So they will come at this meeting with very little regard of whether there will be more bombings.
Yeah.
However, they know that Trump is under the pressure.
Yeah.
And the pressure is, if we lose the House by a big majority, we're toast.
Yeah.
So JD needs to wrap it up. They need to be, I think, they need to make the concession of we got it wrong. Because if Iran is going to be hardlining, which they might be, because they don't care about the price of oil going up.
Yeah.
They don't care about being bombed. They don't care.
Yeah.
So they know their position of strength is the fact that they control 20% of the world's oil.
Yeah.
Plus the sort of shipping routes, that, everything else as well. So if I was the Iranian delegation, I would be hardlining. I would try and sort of push as far as I can. And I think the US need to be very careful of not going into another sort of Vietnam-like situation. where it's clear they're going to lose. Or an Afghanistan-like situation again. I saw an interview on Fox last week with, I think it was a general or a sort of Republican army. And then he said, Afghanistan, we were in Afghanistan for 20 years, so this might go on for a while. What?
Yeah, it'd be an awful situation if it did.
Yeah.
And I think, as I said earlier, I think when this episode would have been released, JD Vance will be in talks in Pakistan. And Iran, as you said there, it's clear that they're in this position of strength because it's in the US's best interest to get this war done over with quickly. And I think they'll do that. I think there's a way with these things in that Vance and Trump will attach a slogan to it. They'll try and make it seem like it's a victory. Like, they can say, for example, that they stopped Iran's attempts at getting a nuclear weapon, something that it would likely have taken them, regardless of the conflict, a very long and hard time to do anyway. But Trump will try and spin it. He'll attach some slogan to it because, as you said, there's a threat of the midterms. And I think even he, somebody who's fairly reckless and has so much sort of obscene confidence in himself, he'll understand that threat, and Vance will. So I would imagine, there's a question of whether what Israel does in Lebanon, that's a whole nother debate. I think Netanyahu's also completely reckless.
He's out of control.
Yeah, even though Lebanon applies to this ceasefire, he said it doesn't. And he's actually upped the scale of attacks.
Yeah.
But I think regarding the US and Iran, I think the US will have to concede a bit. But I think it's almost necessary for it to cut its losses. Its effects on the Gulf region will be interesting as well. A lot of these Gulf states will be annoyed at the US because they viewed having US military bases, people like Qatar, people like Kuwait or Bahrain, they viewed having a US military base as a form of protection, as a form of defense. But actually, it's almost become an excuse for them to be attacked. So I think the US could really lose a lot of its regional support. Rory Stewart has gone as far to say that the loss of the support for the Gulf states could actually be the end of the US's global influence, which is an interesting idea. I think Trump's got to be very careful. Trump was almost, prior to this conflict, one could say Trump's foreign policy was almost becoming a slightly more strength of him. Just in this idea, I'm thinking of solving the conflict with Thailand, Cambodia, and some other minor conflicts. But the Iran war, has just portrayed him to be, sort of almost close to being a sort of authoritarian.
Yeah. I think, again, this anti-war sentiment that he was voted on, I think he's completely betrayed his voters.
Of course,
the Russia-Ukraine war is still going on. It's not getting as much airtime as it did.
And also Trump shows no support to the Ukrainians.
Zero.
It seems like he's close to Russia.
Yeah,
in many ways. Yeah.
And then you've got this unprovoked action in Iran.
Yeah.
Well, was Israel going to do it? I believe so. I think they were going to do it either way. The question is, why did he feel the need to get involved?
Yeah.
And then you can't go in the middle of the night and kidnap a leader from his bed.
Exactly, yeah. Which is in Venezuela.
You just can't do that. Yeah. And they've done that, and he's gotten off unscathed yet.
Yeah.
But again, I think he was lucky there. I don't think he'll be as lucky now, because now he's got a big target on his back by both foreign and domestic sort of opposition.
Yeah.
Who are like, he's lost it. He's out of control. Yeah. We need to do something about it. And I think he's worried about that as well, which is why he wants to wrap this up quickly. Because if this goes on, if it drags on, he will get impeached. I'm sure. They impeached Nixon for the Watergate scandal, which was pretty bad. Yeah, Bill Clinton was impeached for something very, very less internationally provocative than kidnapping a foreign leader in the middle of the night and cutting 20% of the world's oil exports. Yeah. So I think he knows that. I think he knows that if he doesn't wrap it up and if he doesn't actually manage to sell it, he's out.
Yeah, and that's why, as I said, I think Vance will have to get an end. So with that, we'll conclude the episode. We hope you've enjoyed listening. Please do like, subscribe, follow and comment. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers on YouTube. We're quite close. So do subscribe listening on YouTube.
And also let your friends know
Oh, yes.
about the podcast. Sort of, we're trying to keep you updated on all foreign policy affairs, and doing a sort of 20-minute time frame, which isn't the easiest thing, but we try.
Okay. See you soon.
See you soon.